So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so for anyone in the session, Olutoyin, I'll give you a brief introduction here. So, Olutoyin is the founding partner slash CEO at InCap Corporation, an investment advisory firm with partners in Nigeria and Canada. InCap recently completed an investment advisory deal for a water park located at Ikogosi, Ekiti, southwest Nigeria. InCap is a lead investor at Entrepreneurs Point, a co-work incubator in Canada as well. Olutoyin's experience in the investment sector spans over 23 years. She managed Intercontinental Group's portfolio with over 8 billion and advanced to group treasurer in 2006. She now supervises InCap's investment strategy. In the nonprofit sector, Olutoyin serves as an advisor with the African Expert Network, and in 2019, Olutoyin was inducted into the Global Leaders Forum by Women of Influence Canada. She serves on many boards in Africa and North America. So, and you can find Olutoyin's website at olutoyinoyolade.com and follow her at Olutoyin Oyolade. I'll link that in the chat there. There we go.
Thank you.
Of course. So I'm happy to have you here. So we're going to be discussing today, as you know, anyone who is in the chat can probably see, we're discussing future-proofing SMEs. So future-proofing, as I understand it, is thinking ahead in a way that fosters growth. You think about the potential risks you might encounter instead of constantly trying to catch up so you're ready for them, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So now I think we can all agree, pretty much anyone can agree that right now future-proofing is important, but I don't think people understand specifically why it's important. All right. So can you maybe describe what specifically are the benefits of future-proofing for small and medium enterprises?
Yes, absolutely. Benefits. I think I would like to make a mention. For instance, why are we even talking about future proofing this afternoon?
For sure.
Let's start with the statistics. I usually like to start with the numbers. Since we're speaking to professionals, these guys deal with all the numbers, So, looking at the statistics that we've seen so far. Statistics Canada, for referring to Canada, for instance, it's there. They actually confirmed as of the last quarter, that's third quarter 2020, about 57,000 businesses have closed down in Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, and although, obviously, they've put in a lot of palliatives, a lot of recovery measures, palliative measures, just to benefit small businesses in these times. The fact remains 57,000 as of last quarter. And though we don't know what the number is yet for the third quarter 2020, but that's the figure for July 2020. United States of America, Yelp, the report provides a total of about 170,000 small businesses that have closed down. That's the economic impact report for as of September 1st, 2020. 97,000 small businesses have fully closed down. So there's that stage of closing down due to lack of funds. However, if you're able to get additional capital, then you might actually be able to come back into the market. So some of those businesses still have the potential to come back to life. However, 97,000 in the United States have said they are closed down and they're fully closed down. So that's actually what's been going on. Now, based on the projections, based on the planning that a lot of businesses would have put in place at the beginning of the year, a lot of these businesses never anticipated these issues. They never anticipated the COVID-19. They never anticipated that there will be a pandemic, or that even if there was a pandemic, it will be one that is allow you do some business, although in a limited manner, But a total shutdown, a total lockdown of businesses was not anticipated by all of these businesses. Some of the businesses that are closed down, actually, in some of the economies in North America, actually represents about 60%. About 60% of the total in the small business area that will not be real. Yeah, and so I was talking about the need for future proofing, why there is a need for future proofing for small businesses in North America at this time. I mean, generally globally. One, because nobody anticipated what has happened so far with the pandemic. Second of all, a lot of things have changed with COVID-19 and the pandemic, and this is why. Future proofing becomes needful for small businesses. We're focusing on small businesses today, particularly because they are the engine of any economy across the world. A few questions. There are a few questions that SMEs should be asking at a time like this. Professional groups, individuals generally, but more importantly, the SMEs. Why the SMEs? Because, like I said, the SMEs drive GDP growth in any country, in any nation, across the globe. And so, number one, SMEs should be asking the question, what will my business look like 5 years from now? Will my business even exist in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years? What will be happening given what has happened so far across the globe with the pandemic, COVID-19? As professional CFOs, it is now time to ask, what will happen to the organization that I run? What will happen to the organizations that I am affiliated to? Or whatever industry, in whatever sectors, in whatever organizations, professional associations that we belong to. This is the time these questions should be asked. Not only because we do not understand what the future fully holds, but more importantly, because these are really challenging times. The times are changing. These are unpredictable times, uncertain times. And so it means that the SMEs we created as business owners may need to change their product lines. They may need to change the service delivery. There may be a need to change the people we work with, the methodology, the manner of service delivery, and so on. As a CEO, as a CFO in the room today, or even the COO, to my mind, our job descriptions are becoming very different from what we remembered them to be, pre-COVID-19, pre-pandemic period. And for us to remain relevant to come, this is a time to begin to think about the changes that have happened, to think about the changes that we need to make, we need to implement in our organizations, and how we deal with the people that we work with, maybe in terms of our skill set, maybe in terms of our experience, maybe in terms of the times. We may be struggling right now. People are struggling to find work to do. As organizations, as the business leaders of these organizations, we might also be struggling. However, even within the struggles, this is actually the time that the necessary changes need to be made. The industry, the customers that we manage, our peers, our partners, our boards, they are more forgiving right now because it's a pandemic. And so the necessary changes actually need to be implemented. And so that this is how I'm going to start. I'm not sure, Jesse, can you hear me, Jesse?
I can hear you, yeah. But you're
okay.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can't hear you, but if you put in the next question, that would be helpful. If you can put in the next question that you've received, then I'll go on and address that. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. The next question I see in the chat from Jason is, how can SMEs ensure that they don't hit a dead end and become desperate even in in uncertain times? How can they make sure SMEs hitting a dead end and becoming desperate? Well, like I said in my introduction, due to the uncertainty of the times, changing times, challenging times, and so on, it becomes imperative for businesses to be more discerning, to be more proactive in a time like this. Yes, indeed, the COVID-19 caught a lot of people unawares. Nobody could have planned for this. Not even the large, huge process of contingency planning that large corporations go through every year, could have prepared any business, any corporation for a total lockdown of the globe. In my years as a professional, I'm not sure I've seen anything like this. However, SMEs need to future proof. And so that's actually the essence of the topic of today. Future proofing the business, future proofing the organization will ensure that SMEs don't hit a dead end. And so, what is future proofing? Future proofing then implies that you begin to anticipate shocks, chaotic situations, crises, calamities. I mean, I put that in quotes. Things, regular, occurrences that are actually regularly described as acts of God. Things like that. There are a lot of people like, they are actually familiar with used to, and usually insurance coverages will address things like that. But now we're talking about a mindset, a shift in mindset, which actually prepares us, the C-suite executives in small businesses, in mid-sized businesses, and large corporations to prepare for the unanticipated, unprecedented, unthinkable. Because this is exactly what has happened. This is what future proofing, to my mind, would imply. Where you're thinking, what if everything just goes down today? What do I do? Contingency planning will address situations where you have actually faced out irregular occurrences in the economy, in the marketplace, in the system. Contingency planning would not fully cover for a pandemic like this. Future proofing then will ensure that a small business has a full team, or like a pilot team that begins to test run what efficiency of operations would look like, what effectiveness of operations would look like, what service delivery would look like in an event of a calamity, a pandemic of this nature. Future proofing then, puts in place systems, practices, policies that would ensure that the organization continues on an ongoing basis, such that the pandemic will not grind the operations of an organization to an absolute halt.
Yeah.
And this is exactly what we have seen today. For SMEs not to hit a dead end, then the C-suite executives, the line managers will begin to ask the questions of how the workforce will be managed digitally. Such C-suite executives would need to think of the various categories of people that they manage within organizations. Do you have, for instance, a lot more millennials in your organization, or the aging workforce? What are you doing with them? How would you deal with them in situations like that? How many people are allowed to work from home? Right now, everybody seems to be working from home, or at least 80% of the workforce. Yeah. How will the millennials cope? How would you cope with the aging workforce? What kind of tools, equipment need to be made available readily and made available to them before a pandemic of this nature? Do you have a more culturally diverse population within your organization? How do you cope with this? Each person working from home, meeting times, regularity of meetings, taking care of the demographics, the geography, particularly for global corporations, people calling in from various parts of the world. How do you ensure that there is convergence of ideas, of opinion, and then that decisions are reached faster? These are some of the things that SMEs need to put in place right now. Yes, a pandemic has happened. Yes, a lot of this, the shocks and the stress were not anticipated, but this is also the time to begin to plan for future proofing. Future proofing will ensure that SMEs, different businesses, begin to implement the digital processes in their organizations. Not because they didn't have adequate, ample technology in place to run the business, but running the business off the cuff, completely in a digital manner, outside of people showing up in the offices and so on, because this appears to me to become the new normal way of operationalization. I believe that A lot of businesses have now gone e-commerce. The e-commerce, they've established their e-commerce platforms. They're selling online and all of that. But the digital economy that we're seeing now will ensure that companies, medium-sized groups, small businesses become digitalized. They digitalize their business. They digitalize their businesses, and they ensure that from meetings to visits to clients to sealing transactions to contracting deals to contractors to logistics suppliers and so on, they need to ensure that most operations are digitalized.
Yeah.
This becomes important. We need to continue to ask ourselves the question of reinventing our businesses, reinventing our operations. A lot of people tell us there is no reinventing of the wheel. Now we're beginning to differ because there is a need to actually reinvent ourselves. A lot of traditional organizations will generally insist that there's a way they've been doing things in the last 100 years, the last 50 years, the last 20 years. But you will agree with me, JC, and my audience this afternoon, that we've seen things in a way that we've never seen them before in the last 7 months. And this is why future proofing becomes imperative for each of our organizations, so that nobody reaches the dead end, particularly given the initial statistics that I gave at the beginning of this fireside. Thank you, JC. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So
thank you. Yeah. Can I have the next question? Yeah, thank you. Okay. So the next question that I have in the chat room says, what future-proofing strategies do companies need to adopt in a time like this? What future-proofing strategies do we need to adopt? In terms of future-proofing, let me start with a bit of, just share a few insights again in terms of the demographic trends that we're seeing. Because the demographic trends that we're seeing in the industry at this time would actually would actually help us to initiate and place or define the kinds of future-proofing strategies that we need to have in place. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, we talked about the aging workforce in answering the last question, and now we realize that most, the millennials actually constitute almost 50% of the workforce in most organizations as we speak. And of course, most organizations are like 80% culturally diverse in nature. And so what does that mean for us for the kind of strategies that we need to put in place? This means that we need to focus on all the constituents within our groups, within the SMEs that we manage. What are their needs? What are their needs? What are their requirements? Which markets do they serve? How do they serve their markets? What tools will be required? And all of this. Then we can begin to talk about the kind of strategies to adopt when we're talking about future-proofing an organization, for instance. It is a strategic, it's a strategic, move to stay ahead of challenges. We stay ahead of challenges when we understand the needs of the groups within our constituents, the needs of the groups of our target of the target markets that we focus on. Too often, a lack of strategic vision or an ill-planned company culture can actually stop businesses from keeping, the pace with the changing landscape in their markets. Over the years, you find that organizations have reinvented and expanded and achieved great feats. However, while organizations continue to increase and target growth, they target improvement efficiently, COVID-19 has shown us that we are all vulnerable. Most organizations are actually vulnerable. It's shown us that organizations continue to fail the test of resiliency So although we're very efficient, although we're agile on our feet, although we've planned it all out, we even have the contingency planning that I referred to earlier on, but we're not resilient as organizations. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken most organizations 3 months, 4 months to get back on their feet, or for most of the organizations that have closed down to actually be shut down as we speak now. Some of the processes that one would recommend in terms of future proofing and so on would be embracing technology. I mean, it goes without saying that we all need to embrace technology fully, not just the e-commerce part where we sell, we buy, we have the platforms where we can actually exchange value and, continue the operationalization of our businesses, keep our operations in business, generally speaking. That's what I meant by that. So embracing technology fully becomes imperative. How do we embrace technology? I mean, there are so many opportunities now in the market. One is the one that we've jumped on today. This platform is called Hopping, as we all know. I mean, the audience. This has made available to us. They created this opportunity for us to be able to speak and continue to speak at a conference like this to Canadian financial officers, financial officers. And so, what is important then is platforms like this, need to be discovered by organizations that need to keep in touch with their constituents, with other partners, with all their stakeholders across the globe. This becomes important. Our ability to discover talents, skills, competencies, and not just discover them, the ability and the capacity to retain them in times like this will actually help organizations also to future-proof their operations. It is important that we discover the talents that we require at times like this, because there are specific talents that have been, that are well-trained, well-equipped for seasons like this, to manage operations, to project our companies and our businesses to the various target markets that they need to be, so that operations do not stop. This is the time to identify such talents, such skills, retain their services. This will enable SMEs not only to scale up, but to build up and to sustain the business tempo and leverage technology, to maximize their connections with the globe, across the globe. Builds capacity for organizations and helps each of the SMEs to appeal to markets outside our immediate comfort zone. So, for instance, I mean, let me expand on that a little more, Jason, if I still have a few more minutes. So we have the vision, so we are always talking about the vision, the mission, the people, the capital requirements, and perhaps some of our requirements human capital requirements. But future proofing is actually asking SMEs and similar run businesses to redesign, to reinvent our methods of delivery, our processes, our protocols, our policies, even to redefine the purpose of our actions or our inactions. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we not doing what we're supposed to do? Why are we taking the risks that are being taken at this time? What kind of skills and competencies do we need to, even in our organizations at this time? Where can we get those skills? Where can we get those competencies? How do we attract them? Aside from the fact that SMEs need to, be on top and stay on top of all of these initiatives and new processes, new redesigning of businesses, and so on, we believe that future-proofing also ensures that an organization will see its evolution, its transformation, and not remain obsolete, because it's important that we do not reach the dead end. We will not reach the dead end that JC talked about earlier on. And so I hope that this answers the question to the audience this afternoon. Our desirability is measured in categories such as the function, the appearance, and the emotional value that we actually add even to the spaces in which we work, the organizations that we work. And so these are some of the strategies I believe that an organization should begin to adopt at a time like this. I have a few more, but I'm not sure how much time we have left.
Well,
So I'll take any other question and see if I can answer a few more. Thank you.
so it's 3:30 by now. I don't know. I believe you still can't hear me. It's okay.
Yeah, I can take the next question in the chat room. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, JC. I can answer one more question if
Sure.
that works for you.
If you want to.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. I see that. So, for instance, some of the protocols, some of the other steps that I think that.
Oh, hi, Rafat.
Some of the other steps that I think that an organization can take at a time like this is ensure and encourage their constituents, their workers, their staff to join a learning organization. So, for instance, we usually tell ourselves, I read somewhere, you need to learn, unlearn, and relearn. You need to learn what you thought you knew yesterday, because what we thought we knew yesterday is now history. We need to learn what other people are learning. We need to learn new things. We need to unlearn. We need to relearn again. We need to go back to the drawing board and learn again. And I believe that joining a learning organization, developing team skills, becoming a global worker, so that your geography does not limit your ideas, your purpose, your markets. This becomes really critical. And then success honor, to record your wins, to celebrate your teams. These are these are initiatives and methods to actually help an organization not only to future-proof, but to remain prosperous and significant and relevant, even in a pandemic era and even post a pandemic. We need to do this, So I believe that I can stop at this point, seeing that our session is coming to an end. I can stop at this point, and yeah. So I see that Jesse says I can stay on and have other people ask their questions, because I see other people still joining us. So if you still have any more questions, just put that in the chat room, and I understand I can stay here and answer a few more questions while we go on. So much, Jesse, for your time this afternoon. It looks like some of the technical issues we'll be able to overcome them by handling it this way. I guess we'll have to check out those items. All right. Thank you so much, JC. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do have any other questions, please feel free to ask your questions right now. I would really appreciate it. In the meantime, in the chat room, I'm just going to type out my details in case you need to get in touch with me. Olutoyinoyelade.com. I can be reached on olutoyinoyelade.com. That's one part. I'm on all social media. And so my name again is Olutoyin Oyelade. And so any social media you're looking for, I'm very active on LinkedIn actually, but Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I'm on those on those groups also. And so I'll be glad to answer any further questions that you might have. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon, JC. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. And I look forward to joining you again. All right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right. Bye. Okay. Well, the session is ended, but since I'm told I can, I can still answer some of your questions. Yeah. Okay. I'll answer one more question. Well, we were talking about what small businesses require the strategies that they require to future-proof their organizations. I already talked about becoming digitalized and embracing the digital economy fully across nations, across the globe. Maybe one or two other things I can add to that, just to answer that, is innovating, diversifying, connecting, and reinventing. We talked about reinventing earlier, but modern businesses and even small businesses should aim to diversify their products and operations to remain relevant in changing times. While one product or a service may account for the majority of your success so far, future-proofing your business would actually mean that you're investing your profits. If you're making profit right now, it would actually mean that you begin to look at investing the profit you're making back into R&D, research and development, for instance, or another business, a similar business, or another business that can, or another product or service that can actually enhance the main business that you do or the main product that you offer. So innovating, diversifying becomes a critical option, a critical measure to future-proofing your organization. It's more important now that more than ever to have your business interests spread across a diverse portfolio. A single product line is very risky. It's a pandemic and a time of crisis like this that actually sometimes that it shows us that a single product business is a very risky path to follow. It's now time for businesses to innovate, to diversify their product base, and to have a basket of products that can actually serve other constituents, other groups, other communities outside of our immediate comfort zone. And when I say comfort zone, I actually just mean the target customers that we focus on right now. This is a time also to optimize all of the resource requirements that you have. Should you be freeing up? What should CFOs will also begin to ask. Are there things on my balance sheet that I should actually be freeing up right now? Should I free up? What can I do with my balance sheet to free up some cash? Because cash is always king. This is a time to free up the cash flow, to increase the cash flow and free up some assets. Should I be leasing offices? Should I, instead of putting all the money into purchases of assets, should I be leasing in some way, in a way that is convenient and that works well with the goals of the organization and the purpose of the organization? Which staff should I retain? It might be the time to ask the question, which staff should be retained at this time? And should there be a change in the composition of my staff? Which one should be retained? Which one should be let go? Which one should be put on contract? These are some of the questions that the business owner, the CFO, the C-suite executives should be asking at this time. I hope I've done some justice to that question, and I do appreciate your staying back with me on in the chat room today. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to stop it right there for this afternoon. Thank you so much for waiting with us and attending this session with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Please reach out to me. Please reach out to me if you have any other questions on any of the channels that I talked about, particularly on LinkedIn. Olutoyin Oyelade is my name on LinkedIn. I can actually answer more of your questions.